water bill, utilities, house repairs, car insurance. Think about it. Everything has gone up. So we need to focus on more building affordable housing. And one of the interesting things about New York City is that the average median income that is used to determine affordability is not really affordable, because what they're doing is they're bringing in income from Long Island, Westchester, where you have wealthy people, even parts of Manhattan and Brooklyn, and putting them everything together. It doesn't work because it's not affordable. So focus on building affordable housing, close the loopholes, legalize basements where it's possible, so you have more space, more people can rent. So a family of 10 is not stuck in one bedroom apartment. So fourth, we need to make sure, need to make sure our tenants are protected, because we have so many tenants in our communities. Make sure they don't get evicted. Make sure they stay in place, because once the eviction happens, everything goes down the drain. Think about it. If a family is evicted, kids are going to school. How are the parents going to go to work? They need to get ready somewhere. It's a destabilizing environment, and we need to fight really hard against it. And I intend to do that because it's not right. It's not fair. We need to also focus on education. New York City, we have over 1 million children in the New York City education system. During this pandemic, 800,000 children have done remote learning and 300,000 hybrid, because some of them need special needs and others, the parents chose to have them do hybrid. What has happened is the New York City was not ready, because there are children in the shelters, children living in hotels, families who had no access to Wi-Fi, working Wi-Fi. They didn't have iPads or working laptops, let alone a printer that you need, because some of the assignments require you to print, take a picture, and send it to the teacher. Because we have gone through this process as a parent. I had to step in, take care of 3 kids, my nephew and 2 of our own, to make sure I needed to learn a Zoom all of a sudden, Google Chat, Skype, how to converse with the teachers and other students. Kids have been amazing, but they need the help. Parents with language accessibility in our communities where they don't understand English, how are they going to teach their kids? So study has come out that our children, Black and brown children, will be behind in average of 3 months to 2 years because of the horrific condition of the pandemic. So what do we need to do? We need to make sure we provide after-school tutoring to these students. We need to make sure we collaborate with community organizations and nonprofits and public libraries and the existing infrastructure that we have in our district to align students and parents with the resources they need. And finally, one of the things that has happened is New York City property taxes have gone up 18% since 2002. And most people are not aware that you can actually file the petition to protest your taxes. But you know why they're not aware? Because nobody's telling them, number one. Number two, it's a complicated process. You don't get the help right away. But if you don't file the protest, the city thinks it's okay to keep raising the taxes. So what's been happening, so many people have moved out of New York City because it's too expensive. Secondly, the money that could have used towards retirement accounts or to pay that tuition off for a child, they want to send it to expensive school, they haven't been able to do it. Life choices have been altered because of this unfavorable taxes when the New York City did not need it. It's time to stop it. And I intend to work on that for 1 to 3 family owner-occupied homes.
Thank you so much, Soma. Just want to quickly, I want to recognize we have a Shaukat Bhai from usanewsonline.com. He's been a wonderful support to BAFA from the get-go. So thank you, Shaukat Bhai, for being here, all the participants and hundreds of viewers on a Facebook Live and everybody who share, over 40 of you share our event. So we have one more question. Before that question, I want to ask one thing. And you and I, in 2016, when the outgoing president, signed an executive order for Muslim ban, you work at the JFK airport, and we talked and we did a Facebook Live. So to that extent, and I want to thank you for your service, but on that, why do you think the representation from Bangladeshi community is important, and how you intend to represent a Bangladeshi community in the greater scale?
Well, representation is everything. It's like showing up, making your voices heard. Right now we're invisible. We're invisible to the greater number of people living in this society, and that's because we're not standing up for ourselves. We need to stand up in a very proactive and positive manner. I see myself as an ambassador. I have always carried myself that way since I was a young child. I knew I was different. One of my experiences, that I amuse myself now, but at the time, I was. My uncle has a dental practice in Brooklyn, and I just came that summer, and I was watching this elderly gentleman with hats and long black coats. And I was like, oh, they're Muslims. And my uncle like, no, they're not. They're Hasidic Jews. I said, oh, but they're dressed up like us. So the beauty of this country is the diversity, and the way to represent. I'm not just here to represent the Bangladeshi community, but I'm an ambassador for the Bangladeshi community. Every issue that affects the Bangladeshi communities more or less affects everyone else. And we need to work together. We need to work together. And being the first in many ways is for you to lead and make opportunities for the ones that are going to come behind you. So you have a greater responsibility. And I take that responsibility very seriously, because the way you present yourself matters. The way you carry yourself matters. You can be a strong leader, yet be gentle. You can push for your issues. I've done that. When I came out of law school, I passed my bar exam the first try, and I showed up in courtroom, even with my fancy clothing and shoes and bags. Maybe Tamina can relate to this. They still did not think I was an attorney for a number of reasons. I look too young, I'm too pretty, or I'm not white enough, or I look different. But I took them in strides, because I said, because they don't know enough of us. They don't know enough of us, that we have this amazing culture of great women, my mother including, and others, Begum Rukia, and then we can go on, and the amazing women that have come out of our Bengali heritage and Bangladesh, and including Tamina and Nahidapu, and the list goes on. So being an ambassador, doing the right thing, speaking up, making sure, talking to the voters and the communities about the issues that really matter to them, and being a representative for everybody. My district is so diverse. It's probably the most diverse district in the USA. And I have a responsibility to represent every community, including Bangladeshi community. And what's also important, I can speak Bangla, and that's going to be very helpful. And people like that. They enjoy that someone can speak their language. And, I've been campaigning. I've been saying a little bit of Spanish here, because I took Spanish for 5 years. I wish I continued. And they like it. They like, I could say, me llamo Soma, por favor, both February 2nd. And they enjoy that. So it's also relating to the people who live in your communities. And I've been lucky enough to do it, lucky enough to live in this time, lucky enough to be part of this community. And I'm so grateful for all of that experiences. And I intend to take all of those experiences to my next work and endeavors that I have.
Thank you, Soma. I want to quickly acknowledge we have a Kaushik Bhai, another media personality, and we also want to thank Bapa's media, another media partner, FM 786. And Soma, we have another question. Stamini Apu.
Wow, that touched me a lot, Soma, and I relate so much to everything that you've said. especially on the speaking Bangla part. You know, I don't get to speak it on my day-to-day basis, but I have to say, since becoming part of the Bapa family, I have spoken more Bangla in the last 6 months than I have in the last 6 years. Very, very quickly, we're running out of time. But, you know, we have a lot of people here and a lot of people at home watching through the streaming. What do you want the audience to take away from this meet and greet with you?
Well, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be talking and people who are listening about who I am and why I'm in this journey. And why is it so important to me to have the representation, to bring advocacy? Because my campaign has been about justice, housing justice, education justice, criminal reform justice, environmental justice, education justice. And that's a word that's very deep. And we often speak of it so lightly, but what does justice require? It requires you to think about the issues that are affecting people. It requires you to take some steps back and think about what's happening in the communities that you're going to be representing. It requires you to make choices and decisions you personally might not like, but it's for the people. And that's what I intend to do, that bring representation, advocacy, and opportunities into these communities because we need them. We need a senior center and a youth center we don't have. And for so many years, everybody has been trying, and other politicians have come and gone and given a little bit of money, but haven't done the full job. And that's what I want to do, make sure people have opportunities, that they don't feel like they're left out. That they shouldn't be feeling left out. They shouldn't be feeling like it's a tale of two cities. They shouldn't be feeling that they cannot go up to their elected official. They should be feeling, okay, she's an elected official, I can approach her. And everybody should be feeling that, because it's about helping people. It's about in the mandate for humanity. And I've always done that. I'll continue to do so. And that's what I want people to take away.
Thank you. Ridwan, we can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Thank you so much, Soma. Thank you for all the service. So Kausar Bhai will close it, but we want to thank all the participants for this segment and all the viewers and our media partners. Again, we have a Kaushik Bhai, one of a dear friend and a media personalities, Shaukat Bhai from US News Online, and again, FM 786. So thank you so much. Kausar Bhai, take it away.
Thank you. Thanks to the audience at the first. Stay here. I mean, it's just the first segment that's going to finish. We have the other segment that's going to start in after this. So on behalf of BAPA, I would like to acknowledge the hard work and the dedication that each and every member they are doing. And to bring this type of event, you understand, Saturday, Sunday, everybody spend time with family. And we all take out the time from that to be in the community. That shows our commitment to the community. And we are blessed that we have people like Soma and the other panelists who will come home. That there are so many people, there are vibrant people coming out of the Bangladeshi community running for the office. Thank you for that. And Soma, thank you for joining and being so polite and so nicely done all the event so far. We have heard of you. There are good things coming. From BAPA's perspective, we will keep doing it, just to let you know. I mean, we will keep continuing what we are doing. We are an organization of almost 8 months. Last summer we started. So there are growing pain, you all understand. Be with us, help us, let us advise us, guide us, be with us. Okay, we are your people. So we are just part of you. So we can, if we are not doing something correctly, let us know. We are open to all your feedback at the end. Other than that, thanks to Ridwan, thanks to Tamina and Nahida for putting up a good event. And please stay with us right here and be part of BAPA and be the part of BAPA family. So audience, I don't want to lose you, okay? Stay with us. We have another segment that's gonna start in 2 minutes, and we will have another meet and greet, and that will be with Momita Ahmed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Shubha.
Bye-bye.
All right, we're just gonna give about minute, everybody, all the audiences, to our other candidate to join and her network to join. So bear with us for just a moment. We will start. Taminapu, you want to say a few words while we give audiences a few minutes?
Yeah, well, I want to say that we are at the end of a historic week in this
Yes.
country. Wednesday was a historic day, and I think every single person on this call, everybody watching, I know we will all feel the same pride because we truly have moved the needle. And it proves that our voices have been heard. And so today marks the end of the first week of a new administration that has already proven that they care about the people. They care about everybody, all Americans. And so I am very proud that our event is today because it's a significant day. And of course, we are continuing the work. As they say, no rest for the wicked. We continue the work because we realize that our voice has power, and Soma and our next candidate, they're all examples of what the Bangladeshi community can do, and not just now, but in the future. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm one of your moderators, co-moderating with Radwan Chaudhary today. And we are here to introduce you to a rising star in the Bangladeshi community who is running for office in New York City.
Yes. So please stay tuned. We have another candidate, Momita Ahmed. She is going to join. She's actually here. She is already joined. So we were just giving some
Assalamualaikum.
time. Hello, Momita. How are you?
Good. How are you? Busy campaigning. As the sister just said, no rest for the weary. So it's we're exhausted, but feeling really good.
Good, good. So here is Momita. All right. So let's talk about a little bit Momita. Momita is also running in the special election of New York City Council to represent District 24. The special general election again is on the February 2nd of 2021. So about Momita, when she was 8 years old, her family immigrated from Bangladesh to Queens, where she grew up. In 2015, Momita helped co-founded Millennials for Bernie Sanders to engage younger voters. Ultimately, over 500,000 supporters in the electoral process by contributing to and volunteering for Bernie Sanders' campaign, who was a presidential candidate along with the President Biden. She then went on to help start a new Reformers PAC, to help elect progressive leaders to the Democratic Party positions, especially in Queens, and to maximize voting power. She formed Bangladeshi Americans for Political Progress, BAPP, establishing over 400,000 strong voting bloc. Momita also served as a political director for Queens Council member Costa and helped make ranked choices voting a reality in her stint as a field and education director for Common Cause. With the COVID-19 pandemic, rather than watch the Queens be torn apart by the death and the sickness and the jobless of and the homeless people in her district, she sprung into an action forming the all-women-led Queens Mutual Aid Network to provide a critical funding and aid to over 2,000 families. You can learn more about Momita and also donate to her campaign by going into www.votemomita.com. So welcome, Momita, and thank you so much for all the services that you have done and continue to do, and your promises to work hard, not harder in the future. So I'll let you introduce, and then I have a question, and then Tamina Apu, my wonderful moderator, will have some questions to ask.
Thank you so much, first of all, for that wonderful introduction. You guys really did your homework, and it was a beautiful introduction. And for putting this together for candidates like myself, it's so nice to have the community support. I just want to thank Basa and Ridwan Pai, Nahidapa, and Anika, and all of the people. I'm sorry if I haven't mentioned your name, but I'm really, truly grateful and honored to be here in this moment and share my, share something about my campaign with you. A little bit about me. I'm a political activist from Queens. I've lived in Jamaica for 22 years. I'm 30 years old. I'm the youngest candidate running right now. Our campaign is about fighting for the people who have the least, people like my parents who don't speak very good English and have a hard time navigating the system. Children who have spent their lives having to translate for their parents, to have to take care of their elderly and grandparents and family members, kids who lived in a one-bedroom apartment, grew up in a one-bedroom apartment sharing with other relatives and family members who are working class. I'm talking about the aunties and the uncles that are working at Dunkin' Donuts, 7-Eleven, at a food stand, as a street vendor, the people who are often ignored by our society and often are at the front lines of major crises like climate change and right now with the pandemic. So my priority is those people, because as a working class person myself, I know what it's like to struggle, to watch people struggle. I've watched my parents raise me on a fast food salary. My mom worked as a fast food worker. My dad working at a factory as an essential worker. Me as a millennial having to worry about how to take care of our family and making sure that we have a safe and secure future to look forward to. It is a struggle that many of us in this district face. And so my voice is essential in City Hall. As the only renter running, I represent a swath of immigrant community members who are facing homelessness, who are facing food insecurity. So our campaign is about bringing those voices and making sure that we have a city council that works for us, that the discretionary fund, the thousands of dollars that the city council receives to help put together resources for the community, that it is equally distributed to communities, especially immigrant communities like the Bangladeshi community. And I'm proud and honored to be the only candidate endorsed by a major local union in our district, Communication Workers of America, as well as an endorsement from the Social Workers Union and 15 other good government group organizations that fight for immigrant rights. And also the organization that started the JFK rally, New York Immigration Coalition, who oversee over 200 refugee and immigrant organizations in New York City. I'm very proud to have their endorsement and so many others, and looking forward to being the first South Asian Bangladeshi elected into City Council.
Thank you, Momita. Wonderful introduction and wonderful work that you have done and promised to do. So for many who joined here and also watching us live on our Facebook, BAPA's Facebook page, they are hearing you for the first time. Tell us about a little bit when you grow up in Bangladesh, what part of the Bangladesh your family is from, and what did you grow up?
Gee, thank you so much. So আমার বাবা সিলেট থেকে, আমার মা টাঙ্গাইল থেকে বড় হয়েছে. My grandfather was Shohid. He died in the war. I come from a family both Sileti and Bengali because মানে টাঙ্গাইল থেকে, so I speak Shuto Bangla. So it's been an interesting experience growing up, right? Having family members who speak Sileti, which is completely different from Bangla. And and I came here when I was 8 years old with my family. My uncle actually immigrated here after the 1970, the war in 1971, and was a pharmacist and brought over his entire family to America. And we have, I went to school here in District 24, and then I went to Bronx High School of Science. And after that, I went to Stony Brook University and I was studying sociology and political science. And that's where I really became engaged in political work, especially fighting for justice for the Palestinian people. And also I worked on the protest for the Ground Zero Mosque. So I was very much involved in fighting against Islamophobia, and that was something that I was inspired to do that because when I was 12 years old, my father was arrested. আমার সহজ সরল বাবাকে পুলিশরা practically kidnapped করে নিছে because he couldn't speak English very well and couldn't explain himself in the subway. And around that time, New York City the mayor Bloomberg had passed stop and frisk, which was that the police can, just pick up anybody off the street, search them illegally, and take them to jail. And as we all know now, that was a violation of our human rights, right? So at that time, it was a very traumatizing experience for me, where I learned in America, justice costs money. Something that আমাদের family ছিল না, টাকা ছিল না to go after them with a lawsuit. And it was a very frustrating experience being a 12-year-old telling our mom and dad, like, কেন তোমরা sue করতেছো না? And they're like, listen, you're a child. You don't understand. We can't do this. We can't afford it. We have a job. We don't want to get involved in this. And not having the voice and the bravery, right, courage to go do that. So that stuck with me. And I realized when I grow older, that I will fight for people. I'll make sure if they don't have the courage, that I have the courage to fight for them. And that's something that I acquired from my grandfather, who became Shohid because he went out at night, broke curfew to go help his neighbor find her son during the war, and then never came home. So for me, running for office isn't just only about service, but it's really about fighting for people we don't know, our neighbors, laying down our lives if we have to. So if my grandfather can, lay down his life, the least I could do is serve, to be there for my community and fight for them when they need it. And that's also why I started the Queens Mutual Aid Network, because I wanted to make sure that our Bangladeshi community, that their voices were heard, that they were getting the resources that they deserve. And if they didn't, they had a fighter to fight for them and make sure that we're not ignored.
Well, that's a very passionate reply, and thank you so much. And it's just so wonderful to have the young generation really rising and feeling compelled to represent us. If you can very briefly answer this question, because I think you have answered it. What was that moment in time that told you you need to run for office?
So I actually never thought of myself as a politician. I'm not somebody who's like, I need to advance my career or this or that. I really am in it because I want to see real change. I feel like there's, especially right now, there's so much income inequality. Like, we're closer to being homeless than becoming billionaires. That is the reality right now. And so our communities deserve representation, and they need people who are going to demand that our rights be recognized. And I was pushed actually by local community leaders, particularly women who are fighting who are experiencing harassment from landlords, particularly a real estate developer in the district that has a history of harassing and exploiting Bangladeshi tenants who can't speak English by sending them to court, by overcharging them if they lose their keys or on their lease, by taking away their heat, by calling ICE immigration officers on them, and threatening them with their legal immigrant status. And so those are the people who were like, Momita, you've been there for us, because when I ran for district leader, I actually organized a action demanding that our state assembly member refuse to take money from this real estate developer. they said, you really fought for us for a very long time, and so many of us are tenants. Myself being a tenant, I realized that housing, especially during a pandemic, there's a crisis. And আমাদের বাঙালিরা অনেক মানুষ সাবলেট করে থাকে আরেক ফ্যামিলির সাথে, like living room টাকে একটা আলাদা room বানায় থাকে. So when I was doing mutual aid, I saw so many Bengali families in homeless shelters, especially women, and that really broke my heart. And that is the moment where I decided, you know what, I don't consider myself an activist, but you know what, this is what we need right now. We need activists because, we have plenty of attorneys, plenty of businessmen. We have plenty of political types in office, but what we don't have is teachers, doctors, activists, engineers, scientists. We don't have that in office, and we really need it. And during this, especially right now, our community needs that.
Thank you, Momita. Wonderful response. So should you rise up among your opponents, what will be your top 5 priorities that you like to work on to help your District 24?
So creating affordable housing is my number 1 priority. As I mentioned earlier, we're closer to becoming homeless than becoming billionaires. And our working class communities are really struggling. They're struggling to pay for food. They're struggling to pay rent. And they're in a very difficult position. A lot of that has to do with the fact that we don't put out enough resources in areas like mine, right? We're lacking vaccination for our elderly people. We also don't have adequate representation when it comes to, seeking help from our city council around rent relief. Our businesses are also experiencing a shutdown. Many of our businesses have closed down due to the pandemic because they were unable to pay rent. So for me, my focus is on housing and passing the Small Business Job Survival Act, which is sitting on City Council right now, to make sure that our businesses that are struggling during the pandemic, that they receive relief. And for our tenants, making sure that they have legal support in housing court, right? Those of us who are facing eviction, and that it's language accessible. তার মানে lawyer যারা বাংলায় কথা বলে in housing court to represent them, because often what happens is the landlords have lawyers, and then the tenants go into these housing court battles with no representation. So এটা আমাদের খুবই দরকার. So that is going to be my number 1 priority. Number 2, we really need to solve this COVID crisis, right? We need to expand New York City healthcare and make sure everybody, including undocumented immigrants, receive the proper healthcare, that their healthcare needs are met, right? That everybody gets vaccinated, that we fund our hospitals, because Queens in particular has the lowest number of beds, ICU beds, which is a tragedy. And recently, one of our hospitals closed down, which makes it really difficult for people with, medical needs to access, especially people dealing with any sort of traumatic medical experience, right? To get to a hospital in time. So we really need to make sure there's another trauma center and focusing on healthcare, especially during a pandemic. The third thing is senior care. আমাদের অনেকগুলা older মুরব্বিরা আছে যারা they're অনেক কষ্টের জীবন যাপন করতেছে. For example, আমাদের মুরব্বিরা, again, 1 bedroom apartment share করতেছে with their নাতি নাতনি, with their children. Some of them are being forced to work as a babysitter, right? And it's a really difficult, and they have health issues due to stress. And we need to address that. We need to create more senior centers. In our district, we only have 1 senior center in the basement of a mosque that is dedicated to our seniors. And most women don't even really access it because it's underneath a mosque. And it's especially during a pandemic, women right now are not allowed to go to the mosque. So it's really, and it's also run by an Indian company. And they don't understand the needs of our Bangladeshi community. So we really, and they only get $5,000. So my priority is to make sure that we have senior centers and youth programs dedicated specifically to the South Asian community that's language accessible and actually, ethnically appropriate for our community.
Yes, you've given this a lot of thought. So just, wonderful to hear everything that you're saying. We're going to run out of time very soon. So I want to ask some quick fire questions for you. And we have a couple of really good questions from the audience. So very quickly, why is representation from the Bangladeshi community important in 2021?
Yeah, there's 500,000 of us, and my district, our district, District 24, has the highest Bangladeshi population in all of New York City. We need representation, as we were one of the groups that had a high rate of deaths, lost so many community leaders due to COVID-19. We need language accessibility, and unlike other South Asian groups, we're more working class. Many of us hold low wage jobs, and so my campaign is all about making sure that our community has good union jobs, that that we fight for their wages, fight for their rights, that fight for gig workers' rights. For example, many of our community members are gig workers. So there's all these specific things that are that pertain to the Bangladeshi community that isn't articulated because there's nobody who can empathize or understand that struggle. And that's why it's so necessary.
Well, I totally agree, and representation is everything in every area. So we have a really great question from the audience. We thank you so much for being here, Samira Sadiq. She's a journalist, and her question is, hi Momita, we've been following your journey, and it's wonderful to see the work your campaign is doing. I'm a Bangladeshi journalist and report on New York's Bangladeshi community. I'm curious to know what journalists like myself can do to give comprehensive coverage of the community and your campaign. What are some of the things you think we should highlight during our coverage? Thank you, she says.
Thank you so much. That is an incredible question, and I'm really glad this person is a journalist. Thank you. One of the really important things that need to be communicated to our community is that this is the first ever ranked choice voting election in the history of New York City, which means that our community's vote won't be split. Right? So one can vote for me and Soma at the same time, for example. And you get to choose whether you want to rank me first if you like what I am about, and then you can rank me number 1, and you can rank her number 2, or another Bangladeshi number 3. There's, I believe, 4 of us running. And that way one of us at least has a shot. But if nobody ranks other Bangladeshis in the race, then we are not going to have a chance at all. So it's really, really important that the media does everything to let folks know that, hey, you don't have to like a candidate in order to rank them. Like you can have a candidate that maybe you don't like as much, and you could just rank them number 4. But if you like a candidate maybe a little bit, then you can maybe rank them 3. If you like a candidate a lot, but you have a personal relationship with the first candidate, another candidate, then rank them number 2. But make sure you rank every single Bangladeshi that's running for city council.
Really, really great advice on that. And that's such a great question. And there was a second question from Samira as well. And again, we're running out of time, so if you can be very brief. She says, you discussed your father's arrest due to the language barrier. What kind of focus does your campaign have on criminal justice issues?
So I take criminal justice very seriously. I was one of the people that was arrested during the George Floyd protest for breaking curfew. And, for me, Black Lives Matter. And we owe to the Black community because of civil rights, Bangladeshis were able to come to this country. So I think we have to fight for safety, where we are not locking up our neighbors in jail in order to protect ourselves, but rather we are shifting budgets, the budget that's spent on militarizing and surveilling Muslims and our community, and instead putting that into our housing, fixing our schools, our buildings, giving more funding to our hospitals for ICU beds, PPEs, and other things, and creating more like youth employment programs, maybe hiring more social workers and mental health experts to respond to 911 calls, and bringing serious reform, and investing in community policing, where you have, police members who actually speak the language of the people living in that district, right? If a Bangladeshi police officer had stopped my dad, maybe that interaction would have been different.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Momita. We are almost to the finish line. Very last question. So before that, I want to again acknowledge all the media partners, especially Kaushik Bhai, Shaukat Bhai, and FM 786, who's been wonderful help to BAFA and its mission. Here, Kaushik Bhai, how are you? Thank you so much. Shaukat Bhai, thank you so much. And all other media personalities, thank you so much. So last question for you, Momita. What you like the audiences to take away from this meet and greet? What do you want them to know, and how they should help you?
So working class candidates like me, we're going up against very powerful interests. I mean, just last week, Wall Street billionaire Ross something, who's a real estate developer, spent almost $50,000 sending a negative mailer because I supported Senator Bernie Sanders, and said that we need to shift the budget away from the police, right? And he sent out a mailer to so many people attacking me for holding a little Bernie doll, and it was a very sexist ad attack. And that's because I'm actually winning. I have the backing of unions, and not just Bangladeshis, but Hispanic American Voter Association, Working Families Party, a New York Immigration Coalition, and so many other people. And so what I want our community to take away is that this is the moment to double down and be like, if they come for one of us, we need to fight back. We need to work together, because working class candidates like me are a big threat to the powers that be, the special interests, the establishment, who have millions and millions of dollars to spend on negative mailers and things like that. So if you see something like that, always do your research and donate to working class candidates like me, who are, who oftentimes don't have the resources or the money or the support. I am lucky because I've been an activist and I worked with a movement like Senator Bernie Sanders, but not every single person has the same resource. But what I want to do is create a democratic system where anyone can run and anyone can succeed, regardless of whether or not they have those connections. And that's what we need to strive for. So I encourage the Bangladeshi community to become more involved and more savvy about elections and the rules, and how to work for our candidates and help us.
Thank you. So we are all